not all abuse is physical. A lot of it's silent. You go through life, not even realize you're being abused, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist. What they have is an illness, a disorder. Something's wrong with them. You feel crazy. You feel like you're the one that's done something wrong because you've been convinced long enough that it's you, that you're the reason that there's a problem. What they're doing is on purpose. Most of them know what they're doing, and don't let them trick you into thinking otherwise, because that's when you start thinking that you're the one that's crazy, when they talk you into believing that it's you. You're the one with the problem. You're the one that's overly sensitive, overly emotional. They're the victim. You're causing the problems. You're causing the stress, the whatever it is. I mean, this is the game they play, right? They're just game players. And, you know, this is the kind of stuff that is just unknown. People don't realize it, especially when it's bred in the family. You know, we're talking about Jaden's dad and the fact that, you know, he grew up in this environment, and I wouldn't have known, because, you know, when him and I were dating and everything was great and good and all that, his parents were so awesome. They adored me. I adored them. They were just so great. And it wasn't until, you know, even 2 years later that I started realizing that, you know, this wasn't just out of nowhere. Like, this was, some of it was learned. Some of it was probably in his DNA. Some of it was caused by trauma of his own that was never addressed, probably ignored, much like all of the trauma that Jaden experienced was ignored, denied. She was gaslit into believing that it was her, that it was only her problem, that no one did anything wrong. And that's the problem, are these silent abuses that people go through. And in this instance, you know, my daughter suffered a great deal. They'll never take responsibility. They'll never be held accountable, because this isn't something that's well known. Again, you can read books about it, but looking at someone, you would never really recognize that they're a complete narcissist. You wouldn't look at your neighbor and be like, oh, they're probably a sociopath. If you dealt with them long enough, or, you know, you kind of got that intuitive personality yourself, you may be able to feel some things or know something is wrong. But without that knowledge or, you know, past experience of having dealt with someone with those personality disorders or traits, you might never know. I think that having a mother that was in this as well, she was a narcissist. I don't think she was a sociopath, but narcissist for sure. Lots of definite traits there going on. You know, and I'm not here to say that I'm without some of those things. It's in my DNA too, but I recognize those traits that I could have, and I make sure that they just don't come out. Like, I know it's not socially acceptable and not a way that I would want my kids to be treated. So I really try hard not to treat others like that, even though I know that it's in there, and I know that I could. I just don't want to. I don't want to be that kind of person, especially growing up the way that I felt about, you know, my own mom and my own dad. I don't want to be in that position, and I haven't always been the best parent, but I'm still learning and still going through the motions of wanting to be a better mom. And the more I learn about these personality disorders, the more I realize that they're out there and you just don't recognize them until it's too late. And that is the case with myself. Is I didn't know, and until it was too late. But a lot of the superficial early on signs of narcissism is, thinking back, is pretty straightforward. The love bombing, that started out, pretty fast, which was kind of weird. I never knew it was a thing, and it wasn't something that's taught or, that I would have known to investigate at all. It was just, I was a young teenager, and having a hot guy give me that kind of attention was, that kind of stuff was okay back then. You didn't really think about it that way. He went to my junior high and high school. Like, I knew of him. I knew one of his brothers was my age, or still is my age. And, it was all good, back then. But the way that it kind of grows into something else is just, it's unbelievable. And the effects that it had on me as a teenage girl, and then the fact that, I got pregnant, we made a plan to start a family, and not knowing he had another girlfriend on the side, had no idea that he was juggling 2 different girls, and made sure that I didn't know about her. I thought, they broke up, whatever, it's cool. The stories are just unbelievable for this guy. But the moment he knocked me up, basically, he was done. Like, he already made it up in his mind that he was done, and I had no idea. No freaking clue at all. I had to find out by going to a family function that I was supposed to go to, and there he was with his girlfriend, and here I am, 8-10 weeks pregnant, and that's how I found out that I was being discarded, which is one of the other steps in the narcissism playbook, the discard phase. So I'd gone through the love bombing phase. The smear campaign had already happened behind my back, and I had no idea, because then the discard phase came. That was super fun. He'd already tarnished my reputation, smeared my name to anyone that would listen on, what kind of person I was, and that I was sleeping around with everybody that couldn't be his baby, even though it was a planned pregnancy. I just wasn't like that. I was head over heels for this guy, and I wanted a family with him, and that was it, for me. That was it for me. And then it wasn't. One day, I was a soon-to-be wife with a baby on the way, and the next day, I was nobody, and it wasn't his baby, so I left him alone. I just went about my business and continued working, and did whatever I needed to do to kind of get through the pain and suffering that I was going through as a pregnant teenage girl with a baby on the way, and kind of just left him alone. His parents still kept in contact, whatever. let's see, what else? Long story short, basically he ignored my entire existence, my whole pregnancy, continued to, tarnish my name the entire time. And the night that I had Jaden, I called his parents and, let them know that I was in the hospital. I had just gotten off work. I think I'd worked like a 13 to 16 hour shift that night. I felt really great. Was able to, I was a server, so I was able to work and I felt great and I had all this energy, and got home and that energy kind of went right out the window. I think I knew I was in labor pretty soon after I got home, and my mom took me to the hospital and everything was okay. Had some really high blood pressure and soon found out that Jaden's cord was around her neck, and that because I was so exhausted and her cord was around her neck, her blood pressure was really low. And when it came time to push, I couldn't. Physically, I was exhausted. And every time I pushed, my blood pressure would spike, hers would drop, and the cord would tighten around her neck. But with each push that I couldn't get her out was basically asphyxiating her. I didn't know that. I didn't know any of this until way later, but I just knew that I had to get her out. My mom and my midwife, left the room for a time, came back. My mom was crying. I was in and out of, I don't know if it was consciousness, but I just remember everything being kind of gray and weird, and I couldn't focus very well on what was going on, and I was exhausted, and I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore. I remember my mom, she looked like she was maybe yelling at me, but I really couldn't hear very much, but I could tell she was crying. And I had to get her out, and I did. I got her out. I don't know how, but I know my mom was a big help. And although we didn't get along, and I don't like her now because she's very strange, but she helped me get Jaden out and into the world, and she was okay. Very healthy, and she did really well, and I was very happy that I was able to take her home. But anyway, back to the actual story. He showed up that night to the hospital and demanded to be let into the hospital, and threw a tizzy fit when I didn't want him there. He denied Jaden my entire pregnancy. He'd made my life complete hell the entire 9 months. Oh yeah, he did try to run me off the road one night, which that was super fun also. I'll have to tell you that story another time. But anyways, threw a tizzy fit that he wasn't allowed in the hospital, and said, well, if she's mine, then why couldn't I see her? And I was like, look, I don't want you here. For what her and I just went through, I deserve peace, and I didn't let him in the hospital. His parents were there. They got to hold Jaden and see Jaden and whatnot, but he was not allowed. I believe I was there for a couple of days, and then I went home, and then a little while later I had a pretty bad seizure and ended up back in the hospital for about 5 days. And, she was with me, but he just made my life complete hell. Ignored Jaden. She was not his. Like, for sure, she was not his. She was a spitting image of him, except for she had no hair. But, she wasn't his. That was fine. She would ignore her. He would ignore her. He would go about his business, in and out of the house with his girlfriend, which, that's fine. I never chased him. I never, called him. I never pushed him to see her. I stayed on the weekends once in a while when I was able to. My family moved to another city about an hour away from, where he lived, where I was from, and then kind of went from there. The whole first year of her life, he ignored her, denied she was his, didn't talk to her unless maybe I wasn't there. He might have, but I really honestly don't know. He was just very, very, very rude. So I do remember that when she was about 6 weeks old, maybe 7 weeks old, I was staying at their house, and he, because he is the way he is, lured me right back into his bed. And of course, me, young, 20 years old, still thought I was in love and missed him and thought maybe he was coming around, but no, it was just, let's use her again and toss her aside like garbage like we did the first time. And I was like, sure, why not? Why not? I already know you don't want me. That's fine. I'll go ahead and do it. I know you have a girlfriend, and she did it to me, so why not? Being young and stupid, and I was willing to play that game. So stupid. But whatever. That was dumb me. So, yeah. He still didn't talk to me really after that happened. Kind of knew he wouldn't, but, kids are dumb. So, fast forward, besides him ignoring me and staring at me, he just made everything so uncomfortable. He wouldn't talk to me, but made sure he stared at me behind my back. It was very odd. Super weird. He waited until the day he found out that I was engaged to Nick, my now husband. Didn't care anything about Jaden until the day he found out I was engaged and decided he wanted to take me for full custody of Jaden. So I believe it was 2 days after I found out, or he found out that I was engaged, that I got served custody papers. That was super awesome. And I was livid, seriously livid, pissed. And I called him and found out what was going on. And he said, yeah, I'm not going to allow another man to raise my child. So it wasn't that I was a piece of shit mom or anything else. It was that he was jealous. And I just could not wrap my head around the fact that he was trying to take me to court out of spite and jealousy. But it honestly didn't surprise me, so I had to get a lawyer and fight for custody of my daughter. And it was just honestly so ridiculous. He had been forced to take a paternity test because I had gone after him for child support after about a year. And up until then, he didn't do anything. He didn't care. He didn't, nothing. And just one of those things. He was forced, and then he had to, and then he was like, okay. But yeah, got served papers. So guess we'll talk about that next time. See you later.